Y'all hilarious.
Well, I have to try to keep her straight. Her psychiatrist wanted me to.
What's the real truth?
I'm supposed to be respectful.
Yeah, she still hasn't learned to say sir.
She's not like Sarah.
That's right.
Janetta won't be having babies in her 90s.
That's what Sarah said too.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Sarah wanted a baby in her 90s, Janetta don't.
Well,
It is 7, so if you want to go ahead and get started. People aren't, we got one person logged in on each one, so if you want to give it another 30 seconds or so.
yeah, but if it's a 7, they'll go off if we're not there, so we must.
Well, you're there, I mean, you're live.
I'm live right now?
You're live right now.
Good evening.
We're just hanging on, giving people time to log in.
Giving people time to hang on. So I didn't realize we were already actually on.
Yes.
So good evening to the one person who's watching. We'll give the rest of you a chance to get on. We're actually here at Ambassador Christian College, and we have our graduate students here tonight who are now captive members in a captive audience. Of course, you could go outside and stand around for 15 minutes till this is over if you wanted to, but it's hot outside. All right, can you tell how many others are on? Can you?
I was trying to share it on the other pages.
Okay.
There's one person on YouTube and nobody on Facebook.
Okay, well, we'll get started anyway. All right. My name is Keith Slough. Let me share with you what the Bible says about the efficacy in the blood of Christ. In Romans 3:25, it talks about faith in his blood. Now, how do you have faith in his blood? And what does that actually mean? Because I have faith in my blood that it'll keep me alive. How do I have faith in Jesus' blood? There has to be some efficacy. And back in Exodus 12, and it says they were to select a lamb without blemish on the 10th day. On the 14th day, they were supposed to kill it, put it to death. And on this one occasion only, they took the blood and put it over the doorpost. And so they put it on the sides of the doorpost and on the top, which meant that when they went in and out of the house, they were covered by the blood. They were surrounded by the blood, because you're not going to walk out through the wall or through the window in all likelihood. You'd be walking through the door. So as they came in and out of the door, they were surrounded and covered by the blood of the lamb. So there was efficacy in the Passover blood, the Passover lamb. Now, Jesus is called the Lamb of God by John the Baptist. And here in chapter 12, on that night, now we don't know what day of the week the Passover was that year. Every year it changes. It's different every year. But let's just say it was a Wednesday. I have a 1 chance out of 7 of guessing it right, because that was the year that Christ was crucified. So let's just say that this was a Wednesday to make it simple. Some people think the night before is when they ate the Passover lamb. There are churches, whole church organizations that teach that the night before they ate the Passover lamb, and then on the next day, on the 14th, rather than killing the lamb, they were out there borrowing from the Egyptians and spoiling the Egyptians. And then later that night, much later, more than 24 hours later, they finally left Egypt. No. Now let's read what it says. It says here, they kept the lamb until the 14th day. And then verse 6, the King James says they killed it in the evening. Actually, the Hebrew is an expression. It doesn't say in, but it's an expression that means in the afternoon. Then they're to take the blood, strike it on 2 posts, and on the upper doorpost where they shall eat. So it says this now, verse 11, and thus shall you eat it, the lamb. After you've slain it, you've taken the blood, put on the doorpost. You're to eat the lamb with your loins girded, meaning tied up so you can walk fast or even run, your shoes on your feet. Now, a lot of you eat with your shoes off and you relax, you're comfortable, taking it easy, and your staff in your hand. The staff is what you'd walk with. While you're eating, you got your staff in your hand. That's not a very comfortable way to eat. And you shall eat it in haste, because it's the Lord's Passover. For I will pass through the land of Egypt this night. Now, the people who teach that the Passover lamb was killed at the end of the 13th say they hung around for another 24 hours. Well, why did they have to eat with their clothes on and even their shoes on and their staff in their hand? And then they finally took their clothes off, took their shoes off, laid their staff down, went to bed, slept for 8 or 9 hours, got up the next day, took their sweet time. No, no, no. It says here, for this night, the night they ate the lamb, which was at the end of the 14th, they killed the lamb on the 14th, the end of the 14th, he said, I'll pass through the land of Egypt this night. So if let's just say that the Passover day was a Wednesday, we don't know, it could have been. And so if the Passover day was a Wednesday, for example, then that night, which would be Wednesday night, after sundown begins the 15th, and this night, which we would call Wednesday night, I will smite the firstborn in the land of Egypt. So they didn't wait 24 hours. Now, how is it that people read that and they don't get it? Verse 13, and the blood shall be to you for a token upon the houses where you are, and when I see the blood, I'll pass over you, and the plague shall not be upon you to destroy you when I smite the land of Egypt. But you'll notice God didn't say, because you're an Israelite, I'm going to protect you. An Israelite had to have faith too. And so God said they were stubborn and stiff-necked. We'd say hard-headed in our day and time. But take a stiff-necked Israelite who said, what good is that blood going to do me? I'm not going to put that blood on top of my doors. I'm just not going to do it. You know what would have happened? The death angel would have come through there, and everybody in that household who was the firstborn, let's say it was a married couple, let's say they had 3 or 4 kids. Well, if they had children, one of them was a firstborn. And it could be that the husband or the wife might have been a firstborn from their parents. So in some households, you'd have not one, but maybe 2. They only had one firstborn, but if one of the parents was a firstborn, you might have 2 people. What if the husband and the wife were a firstborn? Now the rest of those kids would be orphans. So you think how horrible that was, but they had kept Israel in slavery all those many years and didn't want to let them go. Secondly, there's some symbolism in this. Jesus is God's firstborn. Romans 8 and Hebrews chapter 1, John 3:16, Jesus is called the only begotten. But when you read these other verses, Paul says Jesus is now the firstborn, and God gave his firstborn. Verse 14, and this day, the 15th, when they left Egypt, shall be to you for a memorial. You are to keep it a feast throughout your generations. You shall keep it a feast by an ordinance forever. How about that? Forever. All right. Then, let me read my scriptures here. I'm running out of time here. Numbers 33:1, I won't turn there, but it says that they left on the 15th day. They didn't leave on the 14th. Now remember, God's days end at sundown. So, sundown right now, this time of the year is close to 8 o'clock, I think. I don't know exactly what time it is, but it's getting close to 8 o'clock. So when 8 o'clock comes, this is Wednesday, but now the way we look at it, Wednesday night ends at midnight. From a biblical standpoint, Wednesday ends at sundown and Thursday begins. So if Passover had been on a Wednesday in that year, they would have killed the lamb. Deuteronomy 16 says at the going down of the sun. And then they would have eaten it technically on the 15th. Now, Deuteronomy chapter 16, verse 1 says, let me just turn to it because I want to quote it exactly correct. The latter part says this, for in the month of Abib, the Lord your God brought you forth out of Egypt by night. So Numbers 33:1 says it was on the 15th, and here it says it was at night. So the 15th would have been, let's say in this case, Thursday. It wouldn't have been Thursday night. It would have been Wednesday night, the eve. See, God's days, Genesis 1, the evening which starts nighttime and the morning which starts daytime were the first day, and the evening and the morning were the second day. So God's days begin at evening, at sunset. So if it was on the 15th and if it was at night, it had to be on what we call Wednesday night. Now, here in Exodus 12, verse 29, it came to pass that at midnight, same night, the Israelites are sitting there with their staff in their hand, their shoes on their feet, because they don't know when the cry will go out. But at midnight, the Lord smote all the firstborn, from the firstborn of Pharaoh, and even the firstborn of cattle. Verse 30, and Pharaoh rose up in the night, and there was a great cry in Egypt. And verse 31, he called for Moses and Aaron and said, get out here, be gone. Verse 32, the last line says, be gone. Verses 33 through 36 show that the Egyptians were urgent upon the people to hurry up, get them out. That's why they had to eat the Passover in haste. Why? Well, they didn't, here you got this big Passover lamb and bitter herbs and different things, and who knows, maybe 30 minutes from now, the crowd will go out. So you got to hurry up and eat it quick. Now, doctors say it's not good to eat your food fast. You should eat it slowly. So this was not them eating it real quick, and then they still have 24 hours before they leave Egypt. That is just pure nonsense. But there are a number of church organizations that keep Passover. I'm talking about Christians who teach that. So what we find out here is that whatever day of the week it was, let's say it was a Wednesday, they killed the lamb that afternoon, that night, Wednesday night, which would technically be the 15th. They ate the lamb that night. At midnight, the crowd went out, and while it was still dark, while it was still nighttime, they left Egypt. Now, how many of you here have seen the movie The Ten Commandments with Charlton Heston? Everybody. If you look, they may show it again this week, I don't know, but if they do, look at when they're coming out of Egypt. It shows them coming out of Egypt, and you can see the moon, but it's a crescent moon. They're coming out at the wrong time of the month. Passover is always on a full moon, not maybe the exact full moon night, because there's sometimes up to 3 nights where you have a moon that looks full. So that movie has it wrong. It shows a little crescent moon, but it's a full moon. Now, the full moon this week will be, I think it's Saturday, I believe it is. It's either Friday or Saturday, but we're going to actually be taking communion based on the time when they saw the new moon in Israel, not here in North Carolina, because people would see it differently and think they see it and didn't see it and so on. So God said in Micah 4, the law will go forth from Zion. Zion is a symbolic name for Jerusalem. So the new moon needs to be seen from Jerusalem. That way everybody's in agreement as to when we should keep the holy days. All right, so they didn't see the new moon when we thought they would. So the Abib first, which is New Year's Day on the biblical calendar, didn't start on Sunday. It would start on Monday, the next day, because they didn't see the new moon when we thought they would. So therefore, we're not observing communion on Friday night like we would have had they seen the new moon. We're doing it the next night, because you got to observe the new moon and then keep the Passover. Deuteronomy 16:1, observe the month. The Hebrew word there is new moon, and keep the Passover. So you count 14 days, that's when Passover is. So this Saturday night will be the eve of the 14th when we'll be taking communion. Now, you say, why don't you wait till the following night the way the Israelites did? Well, when they were eating the lamb, that's how they had to do it, because the lamb was slain on the afternoon. But when Jesus came along, he introduced something brand new that had never been done before. On the beginning of the 14th, on the eve of the 14th, he introduced what we today call communion. And I call it the Passover communion, as to distinguish it from a Protestant communion, which is done every week or every month, or the fourth quarter, or no, every quarter. Every quarter, every 3 months, they'll take communion. And so people do it just any way they want to. Whereas Jesus called it in Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John, he called it the Passover. The Passover was done once a year. And so we're going to, on the Passover, which is the 14th of God's biblical month, we get together on the eve of the 14th, the way Jesus ordained it. We take the bread and the wine. The next night, if you were in Jerusalem, now you couldn't do it in North America, but if you're in Jerusalem, you would have killed the lamb if they've got a temple, and they're not even doing it in Jerusalem today. There's no temple. But when they rebuild the temple, they're going to be actually killing a lamb, and then you would get together. In this case, if they had a temple this year, they would be getting together because they're going to follow the new moon. The Karaites even know they're supposed to do it. The Sanhedrin know they're supposed to follow the new moon. Don't go by the Jewish calendar. Their New Year's is in the autumn. God's New Year's in the spring, go figure. But anyway, if they were going by the biblical calendar, they would wait till Sunday afternoon. That's the preparation day this year. They would kill the lamb Sunday afternoon, and then they would eat it Sunday night. The high day will be Monday. We'll be here at 10:30 Monday. I want all of you to come. Now, the communion is the most holy night of the entire year. If you attend a church where they just take communion any old time they want to, it ain't special. Imagine July 4th and you go out and shoot fireworks and the next month or the next quarter, you got to do it all over again. What about Christmas? What if you observe Christmas the first Sunday of every month? You put the tree up, take it down, put it up, take it down, put it up, take it down, buy gifts. Man, you'd go bankrupt after the first 12 months. You see, it's not special unless it's only once a year. Thanksgiving is once a year. Christmas, well, it's actually a pagan holiday, is once a year. Your birthday is once a year. God's communion, according to the early church records, was done on the Passover annually. So we don't do it any old time. We do it annually. Now, I'm out of time. I want to say to all of you who are watching us on YouTube, and those of you who are watching us on Facebook, there's an article that I have here that our students have read. It's lesson 4 of our Prove All Things course, and it deals with when Jesus actually died. He actually died on a Wednesday. It was not a Friday. Today I got an email from somebody out in California, some organization out there that was talking about how that Friday was Good Friday and all this stuff. And I wrote back to the lady who sent it, and I said, you need to study your Bible before you start preaching stuff like this publicly. I said, Christ didn't die on Good Friday, he died on Wednesday. I don't know if I'll ever get a response from her, probably won't. But anyway, if you'd like to learn this, just give us a call, 704-938-6415, and we'll send it to you free of charge. We'll email it to you if you'll call in and give us your email address. Or give us your phone number in case I can't understand your email, and we'll...
Or if they're watching on YouTube, they can put their email address in the chat.
Yeah, in the chat, if you're watching on YouTube, you can put your email address in the chat. I guess you can do it on Facebook too then. All right, so then we'll take your email. We'll email you free of charge, no obligation. And we'll email you lesson 4 that deals with the exact year, the exact month, and the exact week that the Messiah was to be cut off. And I'm out of time. Be blessed and have a good Passover.